This is the Try Swim Coach podcast, where the most difficult leg of the triathlon becomes your friend, leaving your struggles and your competition behind you. TrySwimCoach.com, helping you to laugh at the water.
All right, welcome to Try Swim Coach. This is Kevin, and this is episode number 89. And today I'm really excited to have Kate Galliett on with me, and her website is fitforreallife.com. Hey, Kate, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Kevin? Thanks
Good.
for having me today.
Absolutely. So I want to understand your background. What is your background like, and how did you come up with this Fit for Life, both the website for fitforreallife.com and then the programs that you run?
Okay, so let's back up a little bit. So I grew up in the country out in the Midwest, climbing trees, riding bikes all over creation, playing sports in the backyard, really just off running into forests and fields all day long. Like that was my world. And I knew from that really, really young age that I wanted to help people feel great and be healthy and use fitness or health type stuff to do that. And of course, when you're like 7 and 8 years old, you think, you don't really have a scope. You're like, is that a doctor? I don't know. Like, I just want to help people. And so went to college to get a BS in exercise science, thinking that would be another great way to help people. And I was so into sports and movement that seemed like a logical extension of helping people and getting a degree to do it.
Right.
Post-college, I got a job as a personal trainer at a large health club corporation, and also picked up middle distance running. I threw in a marathon for fun, quote, fun. And it was in that time that I figured out the basics for what I would later use to coach a really large contingent of endurance athletes to lifetime PRs and year-over-year improvements and even Commonwealth Games appearances. And the basis of all of it goes back to that growing up in the country and like just kind of really being free with play and movement. Because when I got into that health club chain, it was alarming to me, the realization of like what, quote, being an adult seemed to mean. It looked to me like it meant getting mangled and broken from a desk job and commuting and stress. And these folks weren't free to go run and play and be active and do things with their bodies. Now, whether that meant like, doing middle distance running or doing swimming or tennis or playing with their kids or their dog or hiking, any of that stuff seemed to really have a hurdle in front of it. And that hurdle was this modern living, this adult living that was so like antithetical to what I grew up thinking like life was like, back in the country. And so when I was seeing these clients, they would have like nagging injuries that just never went away, chronic back pain, shoulder pain that they just kind of learned to live with, and stuff that actually really kind of depressed me and threw me off a bit because I was so stunned that humans were just living with like pain and were uncomfortable and didn't really feel great. And that was the new norm for them. And to me, that seemed like insane and like something I could help them fix. So as I was working with these clients, and in time, more and more endurance folks kind of found me as we were working on stuff, but I really had the whole spectrum of, from overweight to underweight to older to younger to injured and sick to healthy and trying to reach an aesthetics goal. Like across the board with all of them, I started really applying and playing with different frameworks to find what was like the best route for these folks to really become what would become my blog, Fit for Real Life. So fit for these goals that they wanted to do, but also fit to feel good and be pain-free and feel capable of doing really anything. And what started to develop was that there were some similar issues amongst them all, but they were coming from a different perspective or place, and they all were kind of heading in different directions. So, for example, there was across the board, like missing mobility, like people had lost the ability to have good range of motion and good movement quality because we sit so much and we do the kind of repetitive activity over and over again without getting a variety of activity in our movement diet, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But the types of immobility that we were seeing was different. So I had to kind of come up with a way to figure out what kind of immobility issues the person was dealing with, figure out which neurological activation needed to be done. I was seeing muscles that weren't firing well, but they were slightly different amongst everybody. I was seeing opportunities to gain strength and quality of movement pattern, but they were a little bit different for everybody. So it was really clear to me that there wasn't one best way that was going to work for everybody. And that's where the framework for the Unbreakable Body, which is one of my programs, it was born. So with the Unbreakable Body, there's 6 pillars that when those are strong, the person is able to do anything else they want to do. It really makes their foundation stronger than ever. But you can't just take the 6 pillars and apply them and go, well, I'm going to make each one of mine stronger. you have to figure out which ones have areas for opportunities for you and what exactly that opportunity is. And that's what I developed with the Unbreakable Body, the exact way that you can figure that out for yourself and then get to work on actually training that. And that's how I spent the last 13 years, helping folks meet those goals, be fit for real life, and really truly become unbreakable and do whatever they want.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it just speaks to the fact that we all need that. There's some science behind the fact that we need play in our lives, and I think whether you get that through triathlon or whatever it is, just walking or playing frisbee or whatever, there is a necessity for that. And it sounds like what you're doing is helping people get to that point where they can do these things that they should be doing. Not just for physical health, but also mental health. So I love it. That's awesome. So now, are you working with mostly right now, is it endurance athletes or athletes in general, or just anybody that kind of wants to get to the point of, like you said, being unbreakable?
So the bulk of my in-person clientele back in Chicago was endurance athletes because word spread. These folks were having year-over-year improvements on their performance. They were qualifying for worlds. They were reaching goals they hadn't reached before. And, I'm not saying that was all, it definitely wasn't all me. They put the effort in, but I was one of the coaches on the program with that. So of course they tell their friends and their training buddies. So my in-person clientele back in Chicago before I moved and shut that gym down was endurance folks. And now out here in Utah, I'm working mostly with kid athletes who do a range of sports. And then online, I've got everybody and their brother. So between folks who do the online coaching program and who do Unbreakable Body stuff, I have gotten emails from people of all walks of life. And that's actually the really cool thing, because you can apply this framework for becoming unbreakable and becoming fit for real life and using the 6 pillars no matter where you're starting from. So I've got folks who are insanely high end, heading to the Olympics, all that good stuff. And I've got folks who've got really debilitating conditions that they're dealing with, and they're just trying to get movement back into their life. Mm-hmm. And because the 6 pillar framework allows you to start exactly where you are and go forward from there, anybody can really start with it and work with it.
Awesome. So cool. Well, we deal mostly with people that are doing triathlons here.
Yeah.
So I know that's something you're really strong in. So let's just talk about endurance athletes in general. What are they missing in terms of strength training, and what do you see triathletes especially doing wrong or maybe not enough of?
Everybody wants that missing piece. They want that key to the city that's going to give them all the potential that they could possibly unlock, right? Mm-hmm. So what it comes down to, because that's the other thing, analysis paralysis. There are so many things endurance athletes are told they need to do. And it's okay, we run out of hours in the day. I mean, my in-person folks were on anywhere from 12 to 20 hours a week of workouts on top of family time and work and all this other stuff. Well, this is your world. Mm-hmm. So we have to just really drill it down to if there were one most important thing to start from, in my opinion, it's this. If you don't move well, you don't groove well. So what I mean by that is you need to move well across the board in order to groove. And that has a kind of a double meaning to it. If you want to really groove in your triathlon, kick butt in your triathlon, you got to be able to move well. But more importantly, triathlon and endurance sports are repetitive in nature, right? Like swimming, biking, running, and it's for a long distance. And all your training is generally done swimming, biking, running. That's a groove pattern. You're grooving that in. Like if you had a cabinet that doesn't quite sit right on the shelf, and every time it opens and closes, it just kind of grinds a little bit on its attachment. Over time, you're going to get a groove worn down into that. Well, triathlon and endurance sports do that to your body. So that's a groove you want to have. You want to be strong enough to run that pattern and do well in your Ironman or your marathon or whatever you're doing. But you have to move well in order for that groove pattern to be good. If you are not moving well, your groove pattern is going to be suboptimal. So this is where you start to go, well, yeah, I do endurance sports, but man, my knees are really falling apart. They might be falling apart because you're not moving through a run gait as well as you could or as efficiently as you could for your body type and your pace and your distance that you're working on. And thus, your knees then start to go, hey, we're not really happy with this. And now we have to start doing rehab and therapy to fix that up. So I want these folks to have a better grooved pattern. Now, how do you do this? Well, the first and foremost thing is to get good at moving well in your sport. And that doesn't mean do more of your sport. Now, technically, there is a technicality to it of you have to learn the technique of swimming. You have to learn the technique of running. But you have to get your foundational movement patterns right first. So when you go to lift up one leg, let's just use a run gait. That's really easy. When you go to pick up that leg to kind of step forward into the next step of the run cycle, if you do that, but your glute muscles on the other side don't stabilize the pelvis, your run step will be off and you'll already be compromising the foot is even put on the ground. So we need to make sure that things like how your hip stabilizes your pelvis and your legs, how your scapula stabilizes your shoulders and your torso, how the interplay of your shoulder to your opposite hip works together, so that when we put all that together and make it into a run gait or a swimming stroke, or even, just being on your bike and pedaling through with a powerful pedal stroke, that your body can do that. So I really encourage all my folks to take a big step back and take a look at their movement patterns. Can they press really well with their upper body and their lower body? Can you do stability work on one leg, like a lunge or a single leg squat, and have it go well, meaning they don't cave their knee in, they don't fall over, they don't have a hard time just standing on one leg. If they're going to be doing running, and that's a one-legged sport, essentially, they have to be able to stand on one leg well. So taking a step back and figuring out if they can press and pull and engage their glutes and balance and stabilize their pelvis and fire their core, making sure all of that is in place before they go adding in all the big, crazy, sexy stuff on top of that. Because the last thing we want to do is groove a suboptimal movement pattern. We don't want to make stronger your suboptimal stuff, right?
Right.
That's the biggest thing for folks, that I think if we could start them somewhere and then branch up from there, it would really be that.
Yeah. Do you know of any, are you into like swimming specific strength training, or is it more, you're talking more like generally get this fitness down and then a lot of this stuff will fall into place?
So specific to swimming, a great use of someone's time is to actually learn how to use their shoulder blade correctly. Mm-hmm. So that whole shoulder joint is a giant mess of stuff. It's gorgeous. Like in terms of a joint, it can do so much. But with great ability comes great responsibility too. And so we have to have shoulders that work well if we're going to be anywhere close to a decent swimmer who's not getting injured. Mm-hmm. And so a big part of that swim stroke, obviously, is having the timing of like how we catch and how we pull and how that works without overusing things like the rotator cuff muscles and that poor little supraspinatus that gets overworked on so many people. And part of that happening is being on dry land and actually teaching your arm bone and your shoulder blade how to work together. Mm-hmm. So a perfect example would be if somebody goes to a pull-up bar or wherever they can hang, rings or something like that, and hangs from it and just hangs completely dangling, like they're just kind of dead weight. Shoulders kind of shrugged up into their ears, totally relaxed. And then with keeping their arms totally straight, they try to pull their shoulder blades down their rib cage so that there becomes a big space between their earlobe and their shoulder, almost like a reverse like shrug. Like, I don't know, it would almost be like the reverse of that. Doing that repetitively so that they can train their brain to elevate and protract the shoulder blades, or lift up basically and kind of move forward, and then depress and retract the shoulder blades. There are so many people who can't even do that because their brain doesn't know how to do it. And then they get in the pool and think that they're going to have the ability to organize that muscular movement. So if they do that and they do a few of those before they even start their workout or get in a pattern of doing that, they'll teach their brain how to actually move the shoulder blade better. And then in addition to that, like on the actual pool deck, you can go up to a wall and pretend like if somebody said, stick them up, and you put your hands up nice and high, you put them back against the wall. And then pretend like you've got, I always tell my clients this and they're like, I don't get it, but just go with me. Giant marshmallows. Like, you remember the kinds you made s'mores with when you were a kid? Like giant puffy marshmallows. Sure. Take giant puffy marshmallows and put them underneath your armpits. Okay. Arms are up on the wall. Like somebody said, stick them up. Marshmallows underneath your armpit. And then squeeze the marshmallows as hard as you can, like you're trying to completely smush them into your sides. Drive your elbows down and completely smush the rib cage with the marshmallow in between. It's going to make a sticky mess. And then raise them back up and do that again. And what you're doing is telling your brain, hey, brain, we're about to do a swim workout. We're about to use the shoulders. We're about to use the arms, lats, serratus, all this stuff. How about you go ahead and start firing up how you use the lat and using that serratus complex with it. Mm-hmm. And then you jump into the pool and your brains go, I remember this. We just did this movement pattern. Let's apply the same thing in the pool. Those are two quick ones people can start with just with their swimming to make their brain help their body do a better workout.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I love that the combining the, getting your brain involved, because that's absolutely essential. Now, let's talk a little bit about injuries. What are some common injuries and some ideas on how to kind of rehab those injuries or even prevent them from happening? I mean, you talked about shoulders, and we've talked about my shoulder issues and stuff like that. If we can maybe start there, and then anything else you see that's kind of common among endurance athletes.
Totally. And I think we absolutely should start with shoulders because they are a giant bummer once they're injured because they take forever to heal. And there is nothing, I know this for a fact, endurance athletes really hate being told something's going to take a long time. Like they are ready to go. They are type A generally. They are ready to hop in the fire and get going. And a shoulder injury doesn't work that way. Like it takes, I know, we've all been there. It takes months for this stuff to come back. So let's prevent it in the first place. In the old way that we would fix a shoulder injury or prevent a shoulder injury from happening, we would do these isolation drills. And if anyone's ever been to therapy, they've probably done them, where they maybe lay on their side and take a very, very light weight. And they're kind of lifting their lower arm, their forearm, up into the air, rotating their shoulder and lowering it back down to their side. Or standing up and taking a band and keeping their elbow tucked into their side. They'd pull the band away to try to strengthen the muscle around the shoulder. And that's all well and good. That's a great isolation exercise. However, we never do isolation moves with our shoulders, especially not in endurance athletics or anything that's sports related. It's always organized with other muscles around the shoulder joint and the arm and the pec and the lats and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So really a better way that you could go about preventing shoulder injuries or continuing to rehab one if you have one now is to work in organization with other parts of that shoulder joint, not just isolating the one little bit of rotator cuff that you want to work on. So a good example is to lay on your stomach with your head facing the floor, keeping your chin tucked in, and have your arms in a Y position. So if you were a capital letter Y, make yourself look like that. And then lift your arms up as high as you can with totally locked elbows and look up. And are your arms actually straight? More than likely, they'll be slightly bent at the elbow. Right. And that tells you that your brain's going, we could use the shoulder. We would really like to use other stuff to help, namely like a bicep tendon. And that's where we can start to see bicep tendonitis show up along with shoulder injuries.
Right.
So doing things like a prone Y raise, which is that exercise I just told you, doing that regularly as part of your training is a really great way to start teaching your brain and your body to use the rotator cuff along with the upper trap, along with the middle trap, stabilizing from the bicep and the deltoid, but not letting them become primary drivers so that they can all start to work in harmony. There are several other drills I would teach, but they get really hard to do when we're just talking. So if you'd like, maybe we can put a video together for your audience of other things that folks can do to learn to organize the movement of not just the rotator cuff, but the other parts of the upper back around that. Another good example is this one. A lot of folks know they should do rows for their back now, like a TRX row or a bent over row with a kettlebell or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so often I see folks do that with their shoulder blade in completely the wrong position. Mm-hmm. So their shoulder blade is shrugged up and forward as they're doing the row rather than being pulled back and down.
Right.
And so stepping back and not making your row harder until you fix that is actually a really valuable thing to do because, again, you're strengthening a suboptimal movement pattern. You're grooving something that you don't want to groove into your body when you're doing a row and your shoulder blades are ending up and forward at the end of the row instead of down and back. So the next time folks listen to this and they go do some rows, at the end of that row position, when those elbows are pulled all the way behind you, check the chest. Is it as open and broad as it can possibly be? Or is it slightly curled forward on the top and front because the shoulder blades are up? That's like the first check you can do to make sure that you're actually doing the row in a really good manner to engage the entire back and the rotator cuff complex all together.
Yeah, that's great stuff.
Yeah.
What other injuries do you see? Like, of course, we're talking about triathletes, so I know all about the shoulder injuries with swimming, but as far as running and cycling go, is there anything else that you see that's pretty common out there that...
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. Foot injuries, poor feet. Oh my goodness. So strong feet is one of the 6 pillars of my Unbreakable Body programming for good reason. All of my athletes work very hard on strengthening their foot and lower leg because if you think about it, most strength programs give you stuff to do for every muscle group and then it kind of stops at the knees. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, but we're running around all day. Whether we do sports or not, we're running around all day on our feet. Those should probably be strong as well. And of course, we're wearing shoes all day. And ladies, you're wearing high heels. Sometimes guys, you're wearing like dress shoes, stuff that doesn't really feel so great for your feet to move around in. Poor plantar fascia gets the bulk of like the blame for foot injuries. But the reality is there are tons of other muscles and ligaments and tendons that could be causing the issue in your foot. Just because you have pain on the bottom of your foot doesn't mean that you have plantar fasciitis. It could, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's the issue. The second part of that is maybe the plantar fascia getting all flared up and feeling like it's tight and knotty is actually the canary in the coal mine for something else going on. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if your foot mechanics aren't strong and the foot muscles aren't supporting the foot and all the bones in there and the joints to roll through a walking or a running pattern, you're going to change which muscles actually provide stability. And the plantar fascia, which isn't really meant to do much besides create like a fascial support underneath and assist with a few things, it actually becomes the tie rod and it starts bearing much more load than it was ever designed to do. And that's when you start to see overuse injuries on the plantar fascia. Now, the plantar fascia wasn't the original injury in that case, but it was the result of other stuff not going well. So it's worth looking at fixing your foot mechanics and making your lower leg strong and durable so that you can go out and do these sports that require so much pounding on your feet. And the most common way people do this is they'll roll their foot on a ball. That's a good start. They roll out the bottoms of their feet, they massage the bottoms of their feet, and that's awesome. That's improving mobility and blood flow to that area. However, just creating pliability and mobility in an area doesn't mean you're actually changing the biomechanics of it. And that's why all of the coaching and training I do with my folks with very specific foot exercises, it's why they're in there, because it was one of the biggest improvements I saw when I started adding it to my clients' programs years ago, was all of those injuries started going away and they started becoming more powerful, because as that foot would push off the floor, they weren't dumping energy out through their arch into kind of the center of their midline of their body. They weren't rolling off onto their toes or really just wasting energy as they'd run through that gait cycle. And so it's important to figure out, do your feet work well? And if they don't, why aren't you fixing it? So here's a quick test that people can do. If they sit on like a chair or something, or even stand up, and place their feet flat on the floor, can you lift just your big toe? No other toes, no squishing your feet, lift just your big toe, and then put it back down and do that several times. Mm-hmm. How about doing all the toes except your big toe? You should have the dexterity to do that and the ability to fire those different muscles. And if you don't, that's an easy, simple sign that says your feet aren't working as well as they should, and it's something that you need to fix.
Wow, my right, I can do that. My left, I'm struggling. That's weird.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Yeah. And most people don't know until they start looking and going, wait a minute, wow, this one side really isn't doing the same thing as the other side. And we're never going to be completely balanced, of course. We have a dominant hand and leg and movement style that we use. And then on top of that, the endurance sports, if you're mostly a swimmer, you'll be more upper body dominant and so forth. But it's worth noting, like, this side's not as good as the other side. I'd like to bring them up as close to even as possible and work on improving that.
Right. So let's talk about your online program a little bit more. Who is it for and what can it do for people?
Okay, so the Unbreakable Body is really for anybody who wants to build the foundation to jump off and do anything else they want to do in life. So that could be endurance sports, hiking a mountain, or playing with their kids. Like I said earlier, this is the foundational strength and mobility program that can help you build everything else on top of that. You might be suffering from an injury and knowing you need to go back and start at square one again. Unbreakable Body will do that for you. You might be like some of my higher end athletes who are using this as a supplement to their program to unlock and undo those overuse movement patterns that happens from being an Olympic level swimmer, that happen from being a very high end triathlete. Like, those movement patterns are part of your sport, but we know that we need to balance them out because, again, we want to move well so we can groove well. And the Unbreakable Body will help you develop the movement capacity, durability, and strength you need in each of the 6 pillars. And the 6 pillars, for those who haven't heard them yet, are strong feet, strong core, strong glutes, hip stability, postural strength, and scapular stability. And so with the Unbreakable Body, you'll start with a custom assessment that I built so that you can figure out where you're at on each of the 6 pillars. Mm-hmm. And then the program builds for you a customized program where you're starting from so that you're working on your areas of imbalance and weakness. You're developing your weakest areas and bringing everything up to a whole new level of foundational strength that works to take you to the very next level, whatever it is you'd like to do. The cool thing is, too, it's as hard as you want to make it. Now, it's not meant to be a high-intensity interval training program. It's meant to make you work on moving better. So paying explicit detail to how you're moving as you do these exercises and actually starting to feel your body move in a better way and go, whoa, I never felt my glutes in that way before. Holy cow. Okay, I can actually feel that now. I've never felt my foot muscles in that way before. Now I can actually feel that and feel myself strengthening them. A good example is when some of my clients start working in that program, they email me and go, Kate, like a regular plank actually feels really hard for 10 seconds now, because I actually am feeling like the deep muscles in my core like squeezing, and I'm actually feeling myself keep my butt really tight, and I'm feeling myself push out of my shoulders. And when I do all of that, it's actually way harder to do a plank than I thought. Mm-hmm. And it's because their brain and their body is connecting muscles that were really just kind of coasting, and we were over relying on things like the psoas muscle and our rectus abdominis and our low back and erector spinae and all these things that the body wants to overuse. It takes care of all that when you're in Unbreakable Body programming.
Cool. So how are the workouts set up? Is it like you get weekly plans, that kind of thing?
So you have everything. Once you get the program, so you'll have a portal that you'll sign into. You have your actual own website and login. And After you've done your assessment, you get a 12-week program, and you'll log in to get your workouts each week. And you can either print them out into a training plan that we have, like a template that we have that you can use on your own, or I highly recommend folks write stuff out into a training journal, because the very act of writing stuff out makes you kind of take extra notes about, like, this felt good today. I didn't do as good a job on this today. Hey, this one was really awesome. Gold star for doing amazing on that, and kind of tracking your progress and actually noticing that you're getting better at things. Because I know endurance athletes, especially, real hard on themselves, really committed to being excellent, and very, very hard on themselves about actually being excellent. So when you log in, you'll get weekly workouts, and they go for over 12 weeks. And you can take them on the road with you. You can use it on your phone to watch all the videos for each exercise and look at the notes for how to do each thing that you need to be doing. And at the end of 12 weeks, you can reassess and get a whole new set of templates and programming and continue to use it for the lifetime that you need to be working on foundational strength. And so I've got some folks that use it kind of year round because they're getting into fitness for the first time and building through that foundational pyramid that they're building. And then I've got folks that are competitive and they're in season, so they're using it as kind of a supplement to the season. And then they come out of season and we reevaluate everything and set up a whole new set of pillar programming for them so that that becomes their main training program again.
Cool. So if somebody wants to join up and start doing your program, you mentioned before, when we talked before the show, that there's a way to get a discount for it. Did you want to talk about that right now and just mention it?
Mm-hmm. So we're going to have a special link set up for your audience that they can go ahead and click through and get a discount on the Unbreakable Body program and get themselves all organized and set up and ready to rock with the programming that will help them truly have a better season this year, which I'm so stoked to hear about the seasons that folks have coming up. So I hope they'll write in and tell us about that. But they'll need to go to your special link, which will be theunbreakablebody.com/Kevin. And we'll include that in show notes and on your site or wherever you'd like to put that. And they'll be able to go in and get a discount on the program and get set up to get started on the Unbreakable Body programming right away. And we do have ready access and availability to answer questions folks might have in addition to anything they've heard today. So between me and my support team, we are always happy to answer more personal questions someone might have about if the program's right for them or how they could possibly use it in tangent with what they might be doing for triathlon or swimming right now. So they should not hesitate to email in and ask questions. And they can do that at kate@fitforreallife.com.
Cool. Yeah, I look forward to diving into it myself as well and taking advantage of some of this because I definitely need it. And I'm not even really competing these days, but definitely, as far as shoulder stuff going on and just even getting back to regular workouts is one of my goals. So it should be interesting to see how that goes.
Well, we want to make you unbreakable, Kevin, and make as many unbreakable humans in this world as we possibly can. And so it's an honor to get to do that with folks, and I'm happy to share what I know to do that.
Awesome. Now, I had one more thing I wanted to touch on is the mental side. I was looking at your website, and I noticed you have a lot on kind of the mental side of all this stuff, whether it's sports or fitness or just recovering from injuries. Do you have any tips on what people should keep in mind in each of these areas going about it mentally?
Yeah, it's a massive topic and one that I could dive into for hours because I so dig into like self-evolvement and philosophy and mindset and all that kind of stuff. I think it's the biggest thing that I think could really help folks that gets ignored the most often. And the first thing I would tell folks is to, maybe you're not a journaler, maybe you're not into like writing in a journal, but spending time actually thinking about what you're trying to get out of what you're doing, I think would be really helpful because so often, I see this in my endurance athletes all the time, they feel like they should be doing so many things or should be accomplishing X, Y, and Z because that's what, quote unquote, everybody else is doing. I have no idea who everybody else actually is, but this is like a pressure that they feel, especially in endurance sports, to be the best at stuff and be on point with everything and be perfect and be amazing. And they are a giant failure if they miss all their workouts this week. And that is a giant hurdle towards really unlocking your true capacity for greatness because you are your biggest advocate. And it's up to you to set that foundation inside your own head for, I'm awesome and amazing, and what I can do is what I want to do, and it's the best I can do, no matter what that is. And the first way folks can do that is to take a step back, and whether that's in a journal or in their commute time on the way to work, think about why they're actually doing what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And when they can understand their why, they can understand the how, and they can bear almost any single how that they want to get through. That 5 a.m. wake-up call, that, oh man, the kids just got put down after dinner, and now I got to finish my workout or write my report to my coach. The stuff that's exhausting, that makes you maybe kind of skip out a little bit. There's more motivation to do that when you know why you're doing it, and your why is completely unique to you.
Yeah, it's like that book. I don't know if you read the book, Start With Why. Simon
Yes.
Sinek. Yeah.
Great book.
Yeah, yeah. And even just his TED Talk actually has most of the information that you need in it. But
It's those TED Talks, man, like you can get a lot out of that stuff without having to actually read the book. Now,
yeah,
that doesn't mean you shouldn't read the book, but
Yeah.
for somebody, a lot of folks, like, because we're talking to endurance athletes here, they don't have a lot of time.
Right.
I know our listeners are busy as heck. They probably are even on their bike or getting ready to go to the pool while they listen to stuff like this. And so TED Talks can be a great thing to throw on while you're riding and actually work on your consciousness and your mindset while you're doing your physical training or on your way to your physical training. I think that's a great idea.
Absolutely. Now, what's next for you personally?
Well, I'm getting ready to prepare for a workshop. I'm presenting at Paleo FX down in Austin, Texas at the end of April.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
with Keith Norris, right?
Yeah, he's a good friend. Him and Michelle both, amazing people, good friends of mine. And so I'll be presenting down there an Unbreakable Body workshop and also sitting in on a few panels, I believe. So I'm getting set for that. And then also have some really cool projects in the hopper for Fit for Real Life and the Unbreakable Body series. So in between all of that, you will definitely find me somewhere here in Utah, either bouldering and hiking or in the local gymnastics gym working on my sport of choice, which is gymnastics the last couple of years. So That's what I'm kind of up to over the next few months at least, and then probably bopping around the world in addition to that.
Yeah, sounds like a great plan. So again, it's Kate Galliett, and her website is theunbreakablebody.com. If you want the discount, if you want to try out the program at a discount, you just go to theunbreakablebody.com/Kevin. And yeah, that's why. Did you have anything else to add before we sign off here?
No, if folks want to get more knowledge and understanding about stuff that I've done for triathlon or coaching that I've done with that, I've had some experience with it and wrote about it on my blog at Fit for Real Life. And sometimes that's all folks need is to read a few blog posts and go, okay, that makes sense now, or point you in a new direction. And happy to share what I know on that topic. And this has been a real pleasure. I really, really dig the endurance crowd. Like, they're great folks, and I'm happy to support them. And I love what you're doing, Kevin, and I think it's really great. And I just want to thank you for sharing your platform with me.
Oh, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Kate, for coming on. And yeah, good luck with everything. We'll be in touch. And
we will definitely be in touch soon. Yeah, I'll talk to you soon, Kevin.
Thanks for listening to another episode covering swimming and triathlon mastery. To get your free online swim clinic, just go to tryswimlessons.com. Give us your name and email, and we'll have session number 1 off to you right away. Begin your process of befriending the swim and laughing at the water now.